The first thing I noticed upon entering the surreal space was the blinding whiteness that surrounded me. The walls, the floor, even the air itself seemed to be painted in an otherworldly shade of white. I stood at the edge of a pool, its surface smooth and reflective like a liquid mirror. Curiosity compelled me to take a step forward, and as I did, the room seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. The geometry was impossible to comprehend, angles that defied logic and perspectives that twisted reality. I turned around, hoping to retrace my steps, but the doorway through which I entered was nowhere to be found. I felt a sense of unease as I gazed into the pool. The water was eerily calm, yet it seemed to conceal secrets beneath its surface. Reluctantly, I dipped my hand into the water, and ripples spread across the pool like echoes in an empty cavern. As I ventured further into this bizarre labyrinth of rooms and pools, each space seemed to mirror the last, with no discernible difference between them. The tiles beneath my feet echoed my footsteps, creating an eerie symphony in the sterile emptiness. It was as if I had entered a realm where time stood still, and the concept of space lost all meaning. With each passing pool, the strangeness intensified. Some rooms had pools of different sizes, while others had pools stacked on top of one another, defying the laws of physics. The walls seemed to close in and expand at will, creating a disorienting sense of claustrophobia. No matter how many pools I traversed, there was no escape from this ever-shifting liminal space. Panic gnawed at the edges of my sanity as I grappled with the impossibility of my surroundings. The white tiles seemed to mock me, their uniformity becoming a sinister backdrop to my escalating fear. I began to notice subtle changes in the reflections on the pool's surface, distorted figures that moved in tandem with my own movements. Faces stared back at me, twisted and contorted, as if the liminal space itself held a malevolent consciousness. Exhausted and disoriented, I stumbled through room after room, each one a replica of the last. The never-ending series of pools became a maddening loop, and I felt trapped in a surreal nightmare with no exit in sight. In this peculiar liminal space, I was lost, not just in the rooms and pools, but in the very fabric of reality itself. The geometry warped, the white tiles whispered secrets, and the pools reflected a distorted version of myself, a man forever entangled in the enigmatic embrace of a place that existed beyond the boundaries of reason. My footsteps echoed through the sterile halls as I sprinted through a never-ending series of rooms. Each one was filled with pools, their surfaces reflecting the blinding whiteness of the tiles that covered every inch of the space. Panic gripped me as I felt an inexplicable sense of pursuit, as if something unseen lurked just behind. The pools seemed to multiply, the rooms stretching out infinitely, creating a disorienting maze. The air became thick with my own labored breaths, and the sound of my racing heartbeat reverberated against the unyielding walls. I dared not glance back, fearing the unknown entity that seemed to chase me relentlessly. As I turned a corner into yet another identical room, I could feel the presence closing in. The pools whispered eerie secrets, and the white tiles seemed to shift beneath my feet. Desperation fueled my movements, and I pushed myself to the limits of exhaustion, yet the pursuit persisted. With every room I entered, the relentless chase seemed to intensify. It was as if the very air itself conspired against me, urging me to flee from an unseen threat. The pools reflected my fear-stricken face, distorted and contorted, adding to the surreal horror of the situation. Unable to bear the suspense any longer, I skidded to a halt and turned around, expecting to confront the mysterious pursuer. To my bewilderment, there was no looming figure, no sinister presence. Instead, my own reflection stared back at me from the still surface of the nearest pool. Confusion etched across my face, and I realized the chilling truth. The relentless pursuit was a twisted manifestation of my own actions. A sense of déjà vu washed over me as I recognized the fear in my own eyes. It was an earlier version of myself, trapped in the same nightmarish cycle that now held me captive. As the realization sank in, a haunting silence enveloped the room. The pools ceased their whispers, and the white tiles seemed to freeze in time. I was caught in a loop, a never-ending repetition of the same terrifying chase, each iteration blending seamlessly into the next. I slumped to the floor, the weight of the revelation setting upon my shoulders. The rooms, the pools, the white tiles, they were all fragments of a temporal puzzle that ensnared me in an eternal loop. The horror wasn't an external force, it was the inescapable repetition of my own actions, forever chasing shadows in a labyrinth of time. The night was thick with an eerie stillness as I ventured into the desolate building known as the Poolrooms. Rumors whispered of its mysterious existence, a place where reality twisted and reality blurred. Despite the warnings, my curiosity led me into its darkened corridors. The air within the poolrooms was damp and musty, as if it hadn't seen the light of day for centuries. Dim, flickering lights cast long, distorted shadows that danced across the peeling wallpaper. I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls themselves held memories, secrets whispered in hushed tones by those who had tread these forgotten hallways. As I walked deeper, the silence became oppressive. The only sound was the echo of my footsteps on the creaky floorboards and tile. It was a labyrinth of rooms, each one seemingly identical to the last. The dim glow of the lights made it difficult to discern where one corridor ended and another began. I stumbled upon a room that seemed different from the rest. The air grew colder, and an unsettling stillness settled in. The room was filled with old pool tables, covered in dusty clothes. The sound of dripping water echoed through the space, creating an unnerving rhythm. My heart pounded as I realized I had lost my way. Panic set in, and I retraced my steps, only to find myself facing an identical corridor. The pool room seemed to mock my attempts to escape its clutches. It was a place beyond time and reason, a liminal space that defied the laws of the known world. Whispers echoed in the shadows, and I could swear I saw fleeting figures in the corners of my vision. The atmosphere grew suffocating, as if unseen eyes were watching my every move. I quickened my pace, desperate to find an exit. The pool tables in the room seemed to come alive, their clothes rustling as if moved by an unseen force. I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck, and a shiver ran down my spine. Something unseen lurked in the darkness, a presence that reveled in my fear. No matter which direction I turned, the endless corridors stretched before me like a sinister maze. The walls seemed to close in, and the once familiar surroundings morphed into a disorienting nightmare. Time lost its meaning in the pool rooms, and I became a mere pawn in its twisted game. As I stumbled through the haunting expanse, a sense of dread enveloped me. The pool rooms held me captive, a prisoner in its surreal dimensions. I was lost in a realm where reality unraveled, and the boundary between the living and the unknown blurred into an inescapable nightmare.